Powered by Righteous Media. Welcome to Independent Americans. Welcome to episode 358. I'm your host, Paul Rieckhoff. It is Thursday, October 23rd. And now is most definitely a time to stay vigilant. I've been doing this show for about 5 years now, over 350 episodes. We've brought conversations from across the political aisle, from around the world, and spanning all kinds of topics. And what we've heard from a lot of you is you want more. You want more reaction. You want more real-time content. You want more guests. And as fast and chaotic as the news is every single day, we're going to try to do it. And we're saying fuck it to production. We're going to do it from wherever I am. Today I'm in my kitchen. And we're going to try to get content out to respond to the moment, to bring light to contrast to heat, to bring guests who can help us unpack and understand the chaos of what's happening, speak truth to power, keep it real, and mix in some culture and sports. So today is kind of like an experiment. If you haven't already, check out the most recent episode that we dropped this morning. What day is it? Thursday morning with the great Dan Lamothe, where we got into the battle between Pete Hegseth and the Pentagon press corps that is unfolding by the minute. Right after we dropped that episode, we found out that the Pentagon announced a new press corps, a group of propagandists, right-wing radicals, and the My Pillow Guys TV network. You cannot make this shit up. So they replaced CNN, Washington Post, Fox with the My Pillow Guys TV network and some other YouTubers and right-wing radicals. This is a part of their continued plan to consolidate a propaganda machine around their movement, around their consolidation of the levers of power. And as I've always said, this is the strategy, and they are starting with the Pentagon. So what they're doing with the Pentagon press corps is exactly what they want to do at the press corps in other agencies and across the federal government. They want to streamline, consolidate, unify their message across platforms that work for them. It's a smart strategy, and they are on plan. It's dastardly, it's nefarious, it's un-American, but it is happening and unfolding by the day. And that's why I want to do shows like this. I want to drop them and tell you what's going on in our landscape, in our world, and I want to hear from you. So hit us up at independentamericans.us. If you're watching on YouTube, slam that subscribe button right now. If you can join our Patreon community, you can help fuel this content and help me continue to bring an independent voice in this critical time for America. So, with that stage set and the NBA season launching last night, let's not forget about that. Some good news is the NBA is back, and I'm pretty happy Knicks fan. We don't have a very good candidate for mayor. We have a pretty good basketball team, and there's a lot of excitement all across the league. With rookie Cooper Flagg hitting Dallas, with LeBron maybe playing his last season, with Kevin Durant in Houston, lots of young talent, lots of excitement, and lots of parity because Jason Tatum is out at the Celtics. Halliburton is out for the year for the Pacers. And that may clear a path for my Knicks if they can stay healthy. Our Knicks are marginally healthy for now, but our democracy, I think, is far from it. The body politic has never been more under attack. It's never been sicker. And there's no better example than my top topic for today. I'm going to rip through a couple of different segments that we're going to try to introduce to you. And this is a top topic that I'm going to call, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. And here is that issue. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. Because you should be angry about the fact that Donald Trump is destroying the White House. I don't mean figuratively. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean literally. If for some reason you haven't seen this, this is not AI, this is not Democratic propaganda. He is taking a wrecking ball, or really a front-end loader, a big claw, smashing the White House, the East Room of the White House, the hallowed East Room of the White House. I've been there myself. It's amazing. It's spellbinding. It's so deep with history. I remember being there for the signing of the Clay Hunt Suicide Prevention Act, a bipartisan bill that we signed with President Obama, where we brought together Nancy Pelosi and John McCain. You can see the photo. I'm standing, I think, in between Nancy Pelosi and John McCain in the East Room of the White House. I've been there once with my mother for the Christmas party, which is mind-blowing too, but I've been in that room. It's a sacred place where they do Medal of Honor receptions, where they do state visits, where they do critical press conferences, where they bring people together. And most importantly, it's not Trump's house, it's the people's house. I don't care where you stand on the political aisle. If you're not angry about that, you are not paying attention, because there's no oversight, there's no authority, there's no consultation with Congress. He said he wasn't going to knock down the East Room, and now he's doing it. So I think this is the ultimate example of how Trump does not give a fuck. Nothing is sacred to him, and nothing is stopping him, which is an issue we've continued to cover on national security issues especially. But when it comes to this issue, when it comes to the White House, the people's house, the walls of the people's house literally being knocked down, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. So stay vigilant. All right, that's topic one. Topic two is something that I want to call below the radar. You've seen it before on the show. You've heard it before on the show. And here's an issue that may be below your radar. Maine Senate candidate Graham Pletner has been making headlines. He made headlines when he first burst onto the scene as a Marine who's done 4 tours, who sounded a lot like an independent. He was a populist, and I still think he would be a lot more successful in the state of Maine running as an independent than as a Democrat. But he burst on the scene. He got lots of attention. He raised lots of money. And it's now been revealed that he had some pretty dark points in his life where he said lots of crazy shit. Homophobic stuff, racist stuff, and it was revealed that he got a skull and crossbones tattoo that's affiliated with Nazi groups. He says he got drunk on a trip with Marines in Croatia and got a stupid tattoo, and that's where it comes from. And he has since, I think in the last 24 hours, allegedly updated his tattoo. So if you haven't seen it, maybe Chris can show it. I'm not sure if we'll be able to show things. If not, we will soon. But that tattoo is a racist tattoo that I believe he should have known about and at least vetted himself, and his team should have vetted before he decided to run for Senate. But now he's adjusted it and turned it into maybe the second ugliest tattoo I've ever seen. But this race is chaotic. This race is controversial. This race is unfolding by the minute. I think it's a reflection into our politics. It's a reflection into the crisis that the Democratic Party is having. It's a reflection of our veterans community and what many veterans have gone through and how and if he will be able to communicate that and navigate that. It's also about America's tolerance for Nazi-related shit. I personally think there should be zero tolerance for Nazi-related shit, whether you're a candidate for Senate for the state of Maine or if you're the Secretary of Defense, because it was widely reported that acting Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has a very controversial tattoo on his arm that has been associated with white nationalist groups. Unfortunately, the way it seems, if you're a Democrat and you have a Nazi-affiliated tattoo, you are disqualified. Maybe. If you're a Republican, you can become Secretary of Defense. This is an issue that's continuing to unfold. I've invited Graham Pletner to join me on this show, and I hope he will. I will give him a fair shake. We will have a good conversation. I think there are important issues coming out of his race, especially related to veterans, related to PTSD, related to VA care, things I care deeply about, and I think can be a silver lining. If Graham Pletner's story can help other veterans and encourage other veterans to get help, which I think it could, that could save lives, and that's even bigger than politics. But watch this space. This is something that is below your radar, but I'm going to stay on top of here at Independent Americans. So watch this situation and stay vigilant. All right, coming up next, I'm going to always bring another segment, or occasionally bring another segment called What's Next, or Something Surprising. I'll debate what we're going to call it, but for now, let's call it Something Surprising. Today's installment of Something Surprising that comes straight from the headlines is Republican Rand Paul, wacko senator from Kentucky, is making sense.
No, they go against all of our tradition. You know, when you kill someone, you should know if you're not at war, not in a declared war, you really need to know someone's name at least. You have to accuse them of something. You have to present evidence. So all of these people have been blown up without us knowing their name, without any evidence of a crime. And for decades, if not centuries, when you stop people at sea in international waters or in your own waters, you announce that you're going to board the ship and you're looking for contraband, smuggling, or drugs. This happens every day off of Miami, but we know from Coast Guard statistics that about 25% of the time the Coast Guard boards a ship, there are no drugs. So if our policy now is to blow up every ship we suspect or accuse of drug running, that would be a bizarre world in which 25% of the people might be innocent. The other thing about these speedboats is they're 2,000 miles away from us. If they have drugs, they're probably peddling drugs to one of the islands of Trinidad or Tobago off of Venezuela. The idea that they're coming here is like, it's a huge assumption, and really shouldn't you have to present some proof?
2025 is so screwed up that Curtis Sliwa and Rand Paul are voices of reason. I'm going to get to the mayor's race in New York City in a second, but let's talk about Rand Paul. This is the same guy who at times blocked the 9/11 health responders bill. This is the guy who has at times been really out in left field. But one thing is true, he's a libertarian, and he's been consistent in trying to rein back overreaches of American power on foreign policy. And he makes a point about how unauthorized, unprecedented, and unacceptable the ongoing strikes on so-called narco-terrorist boats off the coast of Venezuela and now in the Pacific are. If you have been living under a rock or totally absorbed in college football, you don't know that now the U.S. has struck at least 8 separate ships off the coast of Venezuela and in the Pacific. Trump and Hegseth allege that they are narco-terrorists. They have provided no proof. They have not consulted with Congress. They have not held closed-door briefings. They have not laid out their strategy for the American people. They have not asked for a budget. They have not asked for a declaration of war. And we are in uncharted territory, both militarily and politically. This is an example of a guardrail that Trump and Hegseth are not just hitting, they're blowing through. They are whacking boats and saying that they're narco-terrorists, providing no information, and we are really hurting our standing with the world. Every day, we are making more enemies now in places like the Caribbean because we're blowing up boats and saying that they're narco-terrorists when they might be fishermen. Now, could they be narco-terrorists? Sure, they could be. They could also be peaceful fishermen. That's why the American public needs transparency, needs a report from the president, needs to be briefed from the Secretary of Defense. But unfortunately, as we covered in the most recent episode with Dan Lamothe, the Pentagon is no longer doing press briefings. They're not briefing us on this, on troops in the streets under the National Guard and federal Title X. They're not telling us about the shutdown. They have shut down not just the government, but the press corps in the Pentagon and their weekly press briefings. So this is the story. Rand Paul is making sense. He is saying the right thing. Even a broken clock is right a couple of times a day. And Rand Paul right now is right. And I want to celebrate that. I also want to invite Rand Paul to come on this show. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to bring you more guests. I've got a great lineup coming up that's going to surprise you and I hope inspire you and cause a lot of creative thought. But I invite Rand Paul to come on this show. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how Congress has completely failed in their duty, in their obligation to rein in the president and to ensure that there is at least a consultation, if not a declaration of war, which, if you don't know, we haven't had in America since World War II. Vietnam, Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan, never a declaration of war. So we are going into deeper waters, literally and politically. And that's why this is something that is surprising, but needs to stay on the front of your mind. Keep track of what's happening here. There's nothing more important than our national security. And that's why you, especially now, need to stay vigilant. All right, one quick recap that I got to give you on last night's mayoral debate. If you were watching the Knicks beat the Cavs in a really good one, or you're watching any other number of things that were happening that were not the toxic politics of America, you missed that here in New York City, in Long Island City, the remaining 3 candidates for mayor of New York City clashed in a pretty entertaining, I think very frustrating and newsworthy debate. Republican Curtis Sliwa versus Democrat and Democratic Socialist Zohan Mamdani, and now Democrat running as an independent Andrew Cuomo. Here's my biggest takeaway. Number one, All three of these guys are really unpopular among most New Yorkers. Moderate Democrats, Republicans, a million independents don't really like any of these candidates. Curtis Lewa has been out in the media. He's a talk show host. He's the founder of the Guardian Angels. He's been a fixture on the political chat and talk show world in New York since I was a kid. I think he's been doing this for 40 years. I can remember the Guardian Angels. I can remember seeing him on, I think, like the Morton Downey Jr. show. But he's been out there for decades. He's now got the Republican nomination. He's now dropped his trademark red beret, which I think is actually a good thing politically and just optically. But he's been making sense, and he's like a one-man, one-liner. I mean, he sounds like a WWE character out there dropping it. This is how you can develop a political career coming out of talk radio, and it's become the Curtis Lewa Show, which I'm sure will be on Fox or Newsmax soon. But he is refusing to drop out, and he was, I think, the star of last night's debate. Zohan Mamdani. Zohan Mamdani continues to lead in all the polls because most New Yorkers are Democrats. He made news last night by saying he will keep on NYPD Commissioner Tisch, who is very popular, who is considered moderate, I think comes from like the Bloomberg mold of administrators. She's popular in the NYPD. She's popular among moderates. There's no word of whether or not she would actually stay on if Mamdani was elected. But last night he made big news and made a real appeal to moderates in the city by saying he would keep Tisch on if he was elected mayor. I also think while he's very charismatic and he's been very effective as a communicator, he seemed a bit off his game last night. He wasn't as smooth. He wasn't as effective as he was in the first debate. He also stopped doing this smile thing that was a bit awkward after every single answer. I can't do it, but he basically was like, after every answer. He stopped doing that. The reason why I think he got a little bit rattled is because Andrew Cuomo was on the offensive. Andrew Cuomo remains very unpopular in New York, but he remains really the moderate option here for folks who don't want the radical Mamdani and don't want the Republican Sliwa. Cuomo came out swinging. He was aggressive. He pushed Mamdani. He tried to diminish him. He talked about his experience in building the Second Avenue subway and building the Mario Cuomo Bridge named after his dad. But he also, I think, still sounded old. He sounded grumpy and maybe crossed the line a few times in the way he diminished and disrespected Mamdani. He also can't shake the sexual assault allegations where Mamdani and Sliwa went on the offensive. Then, right after the debate was over, Andrew Cuomo, somehow, in like 15 minutes, went from Queens to Madison Square Garden to sit courtside at the Knicks game next to Eric Adams. Maybe two of the least liked people in New York City. Thankfully, they did not jinx the Knicks, and Jalen Brunson and the Knicks went on to win. But if they didn't, we could have definitely blamed that latest issue in New York City on Cuomo and Adams. Here's the net. Errol Lewis and Brian Lehrer were the moderators in that debate. Errol Lewis has been on my show before, and I hope he'll come back again. Brian Lehrer is another iconic media personality here in New York, a host on WNYC radio for decades. Those two guys are fantastic, along with Katie Honan, who's a reporter here in New York. But those two guys especially, I think, are kind of like the default mayors of New York City. If either one of them ran, nobody knows, loves, and has been committed to New York City like Errol Lewis and Brian Lehrer. So I hope America got to see them in addition to the dysfunctional threesome that are the candidates. Again, I hope that Errol Lewis will come back on this show. I invite Brian Lehrer to come on this show. I've been on his show before. But last night was an embarrassing spectacle that all Americans, I hope, will see, but is reflective of something bigger. It's reflective of the fact that our politics are broken in America because our primaries are broken. I've talked about this on the show before with John Updike and others, and I'll bring them back and we'll keep talking about it. But our primaries are closed, which means a small number of people vote in primary elections that determine ultimately the elections. So the Democratic primary had just a couple 100,000 people, mostly left wing, who nominated Mamdani, who is now the Democratic nominee and the odds-on favorite. Curtis Sliwa, also nominated by the Republican Party, with a very small number of people. Now we go to a general election where independents like Jim Walden, who joined me on the show, are gone. Jim Walden had to fight hard just to get on the ballot. He couldn't self-fund himself, but he did get $3 million in matching. And here is what is really happening. Because we have closed primaries, private primaries that are funded by public funds, meaning government funds, government schools, government election workers, government election machines are used, public machines are used to execute private primaries. You get radicals. You get Curtis Sliwa, you get Mamdani, you get people that are not liked or even respected by the majority of New Yorkers. It's not just New York, but New York is a really good case study into understanding how it's not just about these three candidates. It's about a broken system that is producing candidates like this, candidates that are unpopular, candidates that are divisive, candidates that don't represent the majority of the voters. Now, important note, right after Mamdani got the Democratic nomination, his partner politically, Brad Lander, a fixture on New York politics here, killed something important. He killed a ballot initiative that would have put open primaries on the ballot this fall. That is a function of the Democratic Socialist Group winning the primary. The first thing they want to do is ensure that they can keep winning primaries. And the way to do that is to keep them closed. So this is below your radar, but an important issue that's not getting enough attention that I want to focus on. That's what I want to continue to do on Independent Americans. That's what this episode and this show and our movement is all about. So if you like what I'm putting down, please hit that subscribe button, join our Patreon community, go to independentamericans.us. You can look for me weekly on News Nation with Colin McShane. That's News Nation TV in the 3 o'clock hour. You can look for me weekly on MSNBC with Katie Tur, also in the 3 o'clock Eastern hour on Thursdays. Often I'm on Deadline White House with Nicole Wallace on MSNBC. I'm often on CNN with Abby Phillips, but this is where I really want to be. This is the future of media. I am happy to join any show that invites me, but this is where the future of media is. It's talking directly to you. It's having conversations with people for free. So you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram, Blue Sky, all the other places, including Substack. So if you're not already subscribed, please check us out and spread this conversation. Spread this episode. Spread our last episode with Dan Lamothe and recent episodes with conversations with iconic Americans, including Ken Burns, Senator Angus King, Republican Mike Lawler, and others. I am going to continue to try to add light to contrast to heat, have hard conversations, and speak truth to power. Because now is a time to stay vigilant. But no, you're not alone in your vigilance. We are all vigilant, and we're all in this together. So declare your independence. Leave the Republican Party. Leave the Democratic Party. Leave the partisan herds, the broken duopoly. Declare your independence, because that's what our country was founded on. That was the spirit of George Washington, who said the parties were something that would destroy our country, and they're doing it right now. But we can save it. So stay vigilant, my friends. Please spread the word far and wide. And until next time, no matter where you are, look out for each other. Remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together. And stay vigilant.
Powered by Righteous Media.